All right, welcome to another episode of That's My Dad. I am so excited about this. I don't know if I've ever been as excited about an interview as I am. Got Dusty Wright and Coach Farmer, legendary Coach Farmer, high school coach, and the legendary, what do we call you, legendary real estate tycoon?
Yeah, the beginning.
The beginning, I guess.
The beginning. All right. So we've got a great story today. We got some inspiring stuff we're going to go over. For those of you who are listening from out of town, Coach Farmer's well known in these parts as a high school football coach, and Dusty was the manager of his high school football team. Won a state championship too.
I was from '97 to '01.
That's right. And Dusty's got quite a story. We want to get into telling your story, Dusty, because I think you're an inspiration, man. I think you are just going to inspire the pants off of some people. Let me just let you tell it. Start when you were born.
I was injured at birth due to a medical mistake, and my mother did not find out I had cerebral palsy till I was 2 years old. She knew something wasn't right, and one of my sisters took me to the doctor. She was a teenager at that time, and the doctor told her, "Hey, y'all gonna have to face the fact this your brother have cerebral palsy." And so we about a year later we left Alabama, moved to Tampa, and I started school at Grady Elementary School in Tampa, Florida. They put me into a physically challenged classroom, had a great teacher, and that was 37 years ago, and I still keep in contact with her. She was great. She held me to a standard, and she really gave me my foundation. And then we was in Tampa to about 1990. I was in her class for 2 years, another lady class named Deanne Dunbar for about 3 years, and my grandmother got cancer. And so we decided to move home to be closer to her. But at that time, when you turn 12 years old, they put all the physically and mentally challenged kids in one school. And my mother did not want that. So other than my grandmother being sick, that's one reason we moved back home. And then I started at Gadsden in Jill Walden kindergarten class, and they gave her aid that would help me what I needed, because at that time I couldn't feed myself, I couldn't write, I couldn't hardly color, I couldn't use the bathroom without assistance. And it was hard for her to teach the class without some assistance. So they gave her aid, and I was in her class, and throughout the year, and then they gave me an aide. And Mother Jenny Klingenbeck asked Mother, "I have a woman and I have a male. Which one do you want?" And Mother said, "He needs a man." And that man ended up being Mr. Bruce Young. And he was great. He was my aide half of second grade when we moved back in January till the next May. And he was just the best we had a bond. We really did, and he helped me a lot one-on-one with my getting caught up with my reading, with my math and stuff like that. Then I remember it was the last week of school, my second round of second grade, and I told him, Mr. Young, I think I'm ready to try it by myself. And I went on to Stowers Hill, and
that's another elementary school.
And tried it by myself, and I did well. At that time, I was only in special ed for reading and math, but all of the other classes were regular. And
you chose to do that. You asked them if you could.
I did. I told him. I told him and Jenny Klingenbeck, I said, I'm ready to try it on my own. And it was a good decision.
When did you and Bobby Joe get hooked up?
I did not hook up with Bobby Joe till 7th grade. So probably from 3rd grade, believe it or not, from 3rd grade to about middle school, I was very shy. Just kept to myself. And because that time I fell a lot, and I was just shy. But once I got in middle school, I blossomed.
Yeah.
And
Coach Edge sent word for you one day. Greg Edge.
He did. He sent word, and he said, hey, I need to talk to you. And it was my 7th grade year, and he said, him and Gerald Carter, they pulled me off to the side. I was like, oh, no, I hope I'm not in trouble. Because, and he said, Dusty, I want you to come and keep my stats on the football team. And I fell in love with it. I mean, I would go out there some days for practice and just watch and just see how it was. And then I did that my 7th to 8th grade year. And it was the summer of before I went into high school. I was over at my buddy's house, Bobby Henry's. He went out for football, and he got to talking, and it was just something I wanted to do. So I gave Coach Farmer a call.
You didn't know Coach Farmer at the time, did you?
I did not know him, except the time that he would walk in to his wife's classroom at Stowers Hill, and I was one of her students. And when he walked in, we all got quiet. And so I called him. He wasn't home. I said, well, Miss Farmer, will you tell him to call me at Bobby Joe's? About an hour later, he called back. I said, Coach, I would love to be your manager. He was like, come on out. We'll give it a try.
You remember that, Coach?
I didn't. I had forgotten how we got to. I was trying to think before coming over here how we got hooked up, but I remember it now.
That was the beginning of a lifelong.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
You don't realize that at the time it's happening, because I never treated him with a disability.
No.
He never had. I treated him just like one of the football players.
If I got in trouble at school and he found out, he would be out by the gym just waiting on me. I'm like, oh, Lord, I'm in trouble.
So he told you could come be the manager for the football team.
And
you didn't know you was going to be on a great football team with a bunch of pro athletes, did you?
I really wasn't into football. I was into Nintendo, you know, just keep my mind occupied. But I got out there and I loved it. I mean, though the current team treated me like a brother. They gave me a hard time. they put me upside down in garbage cans and stuff like that at first. But, I guess the torture of being a ninth grader.
Yeah.
But, at first I know I drove this man crazy because what he wanted me to do, I made every excuse to not do it.
Really?
I did. I was just like, I was lazy, but it finally clicked, and then I think it was the end of the season, my ninth grade year. He was like, Dusty, I need you to teach me how to use a computer. I was like, well, alrighty. And he come over after football practice to my house about 2 to 3 nights a week.
Really?
And I would teach him how to use a computer.
Coach, would you learn how to use a computer, or were you just hanging out with Dusty?
No, I was learning how to use it because I did not know anything about it, and still don't know a whole lot. But all I know, he taught me.
Really?
And there were some nights it got to be about 10:30. I'm like, Coach, I got to go to bed.
You had to run the coach
I
off.
was like, I hate to be like this, but
But you
I
need to
have
leave.
school in the morning.
He ran me off.
So
Did you ever teach him how to use the computer?
I did. I was
I
proud
know the
of him.
basics.
I was. It took time, but I was proud of him.
Was he a little slow learner?
Well, a little bit, but so was I in some things.
So Coach was tough on you, wasn't he?
He was.
Why were you tough on him, Coach? Let's hear about
Well,
that.
it's tough enough having a disability, and he's gonna have to live with that the rest of his life. So he better get tough, or it's gonna be tough on him if he's not tough. And he responded. Plus, one thing, he's hard headed, and another thing, he's a whole lot more intelligent than he was acting back then.
Oh,
And he's proven that since he's got out of school. He can do a lot of things.
yeah.
And a lot more than he let on that he could do when he was in school.
You think he would have ever reached that point had you not pushed him?
I don't know.
What do you think, Dusty?
I think if it wasn't for football and Coach Farmer, I would not be where I am today. I think I would just be a guy drawing a disability check.
You're far from that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I needed that father figure, and he gave it to me in so many ways. I mean, I would call him even after I graduated when life wasn't good, and he would just lift me up like nobody else could.
And you weren't a star athlete.
I never could make a tackle for this man. I never could make a catch. I never could run the ball. But he loved me just like his starters.
And there were some good ones too, weren't they? Wow. What a story. You had a family, Ryan's family treated you like family as well.
Yes, I grew up with Ryan, oldest brother Jason
Carter.
and his we was friends. Started second grade, and I remember when Jason come up to me, he was like, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" I said, "I have cerebral palsy." He was like, he was like, "Well, tell me, what did it affect?" And I said, "Well, you're looking at it." And he said, "So, you're not retarded, right?" And I was like, "No." And ever since that conversation, he has been a true brother. He has, even after we graduated, bad relationships, stuff going on with his life, when I would not think clearly, he really put me on the right track.
Yeah.
And when we talk maybe about twice a week, and that's been 32 years ago.
Wow. So you've made friends with a lot of people. You're very well known, but it's because you have such a great attitude and a great sense of humor, by the way.
Well, one thing this man taught me was, if you want something out of life, you're gonna have to work for it, disabled or not.
Mm.
And my senior year, I got hired with Parks and Rec for the city of Gadsden. And before that, I could not find a job. They would call me and be like, hey, we need somebody to come in. I went for an interview. It was always, we'll let you know.
Mm.
And then one day I walked into, she was known as the Parks and Rec planner back then, but I walked into the office of Sandy Battles, and she hired me on the spot. I told her, I said, I need a job. I don't care whether you put me weeding in grass. I need a job. And she hired me. She told me to go take a drug test. Yes, ma'am. I went and took a drug test, and that was September 2001. And I was in therapeutic recreation, which provides recreation for mentally and physically challenged kids and adults.
You were working for the city.
I was working for the city, and I did that for 18 and a half years. Pandemic hit, got laid off. They called me back, and I've been at Raymond Hill Community Center ever since.
You get up and go to work every morning.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's not morning. My schedule mostly afternoons, like 11 to 5 or 2 to 8. So I get to sleep in the morning or go have lunch with him.
Which has been going on since we got out of school.
We have gone to lunch about every week since I've graduated.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute. And that really struck me as being interesting, and that's part of the reason I wanted to have Coach Farmer on with you. I understand you had some pretty inspiring speeches that you gave to the Etowah football team.
Well, I felt like when I first discovered what it was all about, I felt like that was my chance to inspire them. To just, hey, if I could play, I would get 110%. You're able to play, and your butt's dragging.
Mm.
You know, so, I mean, there was one time I was on the sidelines and Cornell wasn't having a good game, and I grabbed him by the face mask and I chewed him out.
Cornell
Williams.
The famous Auburn University running back, went on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You grabbed Cornell by the face mask.
I did. I was like, what are you thinking? You need to get it together, see? Because back then we called him C, and he came back out pretty fresh. So.
Yeah, he's the best athlete I've ever seen in person.
Hey, I love to watch his highlight films, and I mean, he was man.
And you motivated Cornell Williams.
I tried. I was like, I could never do what you do, but I was like, look, we're in this together, and I won a state championship just like you do.
And so where does that stand now? Tell us about that season, Coach. You can chime in. That was quite a year. I had kids on the team too.
Well, we were just Rick Rhodes that coached at Pelham and coached it. He won a national championship, I think, at Troy and won one somewhere else. He told me after that year, he said, y'all were the best team in the state of Alabama that year, any class.
Yeah.
But we were just real talented, but our kids really, really cared. And I tell you, we played in the playoffs. We played the best folks in the state. Everybody had a great record, and then the longer we played, the better we got. And just it was a magical year. They don't happen like that. You got to have the right kind of players. And Carnell was a once in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Very few coaches get to coach one as good as him, and it wasn't his ability that made him good. He was just wired different from birth.
Yeah.
When he was in 7th grade, he played on a 9th grade team and gained something like 1,400 yards.
Yeah.
7th grader.
Yeah.
And then when he came over in the 9th grade in the spring of his 8th grade year, he wanted to run the football every time against the 12th graders. Mm-hmm. He was just one of these once-in-a-lifetime players that everybody don't get to coach.
Dusty, Coach Farmer, what role did Dusty play in that magical season that you had? He was not just –
Well, he was I think he was part of the glue that sort of held everything together because they knew how much he loved them, and they knew that if he could have played, he would have played. And yet he's there. He loved that team so much, he was always willing to critique them, and they loved him for it. I mean, they knew that how much he loved them, and they knew how much if he could have played, that he would have played. And I think he sort of held everything together, and they knew if things wasn't going right, Dusty's bold enough, he's going to speak up, or he should have been quiet.
Hey, you know me, I have no filter.
Yeah, I got a story I want to get to about that, but y'all won the state championship, went 15-0, I believe.
Yeah.
You've got your name on a plaque. Tell us about that.
I have my name on 3 monuments at the end of the stadium and a brick on the new field house. And it's amazing to me that long after I'm gone, it'll still be there.
Wow. Tell us about the last game. Your last game. Coach Farmer gave a speech after the game.
I was just tore up. I mean, you know, I couldn't play, but I would get so emotional, and I realized, hey, this is it. There's no more, you know, and we all got into the field house, the entire team, and Coach Farmer got up and talked, and he was talking to a few seniors. And he saw me. He said, Dusty, you've been a joy to be around. And you know, when you first came, we didn't see eye to eye on some things either, but I want you to know I'm proud of how much you've grown, and I wish you the very best.
How'd that make you feel, Dusty?
It made me feel good. Of course, I cried like a baby after he said that. So, but those are words I'll never forget.
How many years has that been?
22.
Coach, did you think 22 years ago when you made that statement that he would remember it?
I really didn't know. I thought he would because we had gotten pretty close, and I had treated him just like he is normal, physically.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't know how kids are going to take what you give them. And he took it the right way. I mean, he took it, ran with it, and has been successful ever since.
Dusty, you want to talk about how you got into the real estate business?
Oh, I received a settlement in 95 because I was injured at birth and it was the doctor's fault. We went to trial in Gadsden for about 2 years earlier. Back then, they did not have proof of, a doctor could cause cerebral palsy. And so he was a famous known doctor in Gadsden. And so we ended up going to trial. It was the first, we lost the case. It was the first trial my lawyer lost. He was out of Birmingham at the time. And then we thought it was over. We really did. And somebody came to our door and the Supreme Court of Alabama reversed the decision. And due to one of the jurors being one of his patients. So I got the least amount. I got $150,000, and we was living in public housing on Stowers Hill in Tyler. And first thing I told Mother, I said, we can buy a house. And
You'd always lived in public housing with your mom?
No, we lived in Tampa. We lived in apartments. We lived in a house in Tampa. But for the last 5 years, we was living in public housing.
Just you and your mom and
just me and Mom. And we found this house in the Mill Village, and it was an 85-year-old lady who listed it. She lived there she was the only owner of that house.
I admit that house was built when
in 1948.
Yeah.
It was, she worked at the cotton mill, her and her husband. He passed away years ago. But, saw a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, corner lot, Mill Village for $36,500. I was like, let's go look at it. When we looked at it, we fell in love with it. So we bought it, and and that money lasted from about 96 to probably 2010. I mean, we did not blow it. And I remember having $4,600 left. And I called a buddy of mine, a friend I grew up with, Brian Bowman. And I said, what should I do? He said, buy you a rental house. He said, I've always took care of my credit. He said, just buy you a rental house. He said, trust me, you may not at first, but you'll eventually, make money off of it. So I bought my first rental house for $23,000. My payment was $130.20, and I was charging $450 rent.
He's quite a businessman.
He's like,
but at first, I've learned to discipline. I've never been one to blow money. And then I ended up, I managed our house for about 6 years, and it caught fire. And one of the tenants left something on the stove and just walked out the door. But Brian Bowman put me in contact, a few years earlier before the fire with a guy named David Nations. He go by DJ, and he can redo a house, can do whatever needs to be done. And he was, I would call him, something messed up, and he helped me redo the house, and we redid it. And I only owed some change on it because I was making double payments. And about 6 months after we redid it, I bought number 2. And he helped me redo that one and got it rented. And he has really helped me a lot with stuff that I did not know in the business. He taught me a lot. Plus, I know he's only a phone call away.
Yeah, you've made those contacts with people, but it's because you reach out to people.
Right.
That's a message that a lot of young guys need to hear. Is reach out. There's
Right.
people that love to help other people. But the thing about you, Dusty, is you didn't sit around waiting. Dusty, the world, our culture, Coach may agree with me, we got some lazy people.
Yeah,
we got some people that are all they want to do is be a victim of this, a victim of that, blame somebody. I can't do this. I can't do that.
And draw a check from somewhere.
Draw a check from somewhere. Can't wait for the next lawsuit. They'd drive their car out in front of you thinking they're going to win a lawsuit.
Right.
And here you are where you're, crippled legs.
Hey, it is what it is.
You roll
what a cripple can be.
You roll out of bed every day and go to work.
Every day.
And you invest your money well.
And you don't complain.
And you never complain.
Right.
You're just like my daughter. My daughter's body was crushed in a car wreck. She's in constant pain. She never says anything. And I see these people complaining about everything they can possibly think of. And I see people like you, and it just makes me want to grab them by the shirt and just ram them up against the wall and shake them a little bit. Because if anybody can, look what you're doing.
Right.
You're a successful businessman. You're a real estate investor. You got a state championship ring. You own a house. You're taking care of your mom. You treat people right.
Right.
You're kind to people. You got a great personality.
And he knows a lot of his people. He can pick up the phone and call the mayor of Gadsden and think nothing of it.
You have to have a drive. And, growing up without a dad and a dad to support you in ways that you need supported, whether financially, emotionally, or just somebody to talk to just... I knew when I lived in public housing, I wanted out. I wanted something more, even from an early age. And even though that little bit of settlement got me out, I knew back then that money wasn't going to last. And I had to make some wise decisions.
You had a guy called you a name one time, one of your tenants. You want to tell that story?
Oh, yeah, I did.
You can go ahead and tell us what he called you. I guess it'd be all right.
But he wasn't in my house long, but he was late on rent. And I went up to serve papers. I was like, hey, you got 14 days. And he said, oh, you're such a retard. And I said, well, buddy, I might be retarded, but at least I'm not homeless.
That's what I love about you, Dusty. You got him, you kicked him out of the house, huh?
But do you know the personality, how I got that personality? It's because of Raymond Farmer.
Oh, man.
Because that is something that he would say. And at that moment, it just came out.
Wow, that's incredible. And you were right. That guy needed to be have him be lowered a notch. You put him in his place.
Right. So
I mean, I don't really.
he was there for about a week later. Then I went up there and I haven't seen his car a few days, and I went up there, went inside, and he was gone. Never seen him since.
Hey, Scott Hilton here. I hope you're enjoying the interview we did with Dusty Wright and Coach Farmer. There was just too much good information to squeeze it all into one episode. So for the first time with the podcast, we're doing a two-part interview. So you're going to have to come back next week to hear the rest of the story. But it's an incredible story of a coach who took in a fatherless child. And Dusty Wright is truly an inspirational person. In fact, there's some talk out there, some future projects that I'll tease you about that could occur related to Dusty. So you're going to have to come back next week, hear more about their relationship, and the end of the episode next week is very moving. So I invite you to come back next week for part 2. Thanks for joining us.